What is special about her is when you touch the figure, especially the skin area, and then you are like, wow, what is this? I've never felt this before. Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven, today with a scale figure review. And guess what? This is such a plain and simple figure, but she is turning out to be one of my favorite purchases this year. Easily in top 5. I just don't know where to rank her, but among my favorites. And this isn't just about me being a fan of character designs from Goddess of Victory Nikke, but there is something special about the paintwork of this figure which I couldn't quite figure out, other than some secret special sauce that Good Smile Arts Shanghai chose to apply on this figure. So yeah, coming from Good Smile Arts Shanghai and also Good Smile Company, we have a 1x7 scale Rapi swimsuit version from Goddess of Victory Nikke, released back in late June 2025, which is almost 3 months ago by now, but I am only reviewing her today after a series of delays involving shipping. Yes, but better be late than never, I suppose. And at 1x7 scale, this figure stands at 25 centimeters head height, including the base over here. So this is definitely within the 1x7 scale territory, just the right size for me. And speaking of the assembly of this figure, there was none of it. I guess that was the biggest disappointment of this figure. Not necessarily a negative for many of you who collect anime figures, but I am not a fan of figures that were permanently glued to the base. But unfortunately, this is one of those figures. Let me lift up the figure right here. As you can see, Good Smile Arts Shanghai has screwed the figure into the base. There is a pair of screws underneath the base over here. I don't like it, but it is what it is, I suppose. I would prefer if the figure was removable from the base so that I can make my own custom bases for the figure. That is the main reason why I prefer my figures to be removable from the base. And speaking of the box as well, this is what the box looks like. So non-windowed box, interestingly, which I can only assume the reason why they did so is because they wanted to cut cost. Because if you did a cutout on the front of the box and then you need a second material, the clear plastic, to apply and glue on, that is additional cost once again. I personally prefer windowed box, obviously, but they had to cut cost over here to keep the figure as cheap as 15,000 yen. So I suppose I can't complain too much. Yeah, and this box is just ordinary paper box, not going to protect the figure from severe damage should the postman prefers to sit on a parcel. So this is maybe a 5 out of 10 box. Yeah, not very good, perfectly average. Moving on to the sculpting department, this is a dead simple figure, which means I am going to be even stricter with scrutinizing the figure, because for something being so simple, if they screw it up, then what about figures that are more complicated, more complex, right? This figure, you can even compare it to the low-budget figures coming out from China right now. They cost less than 10,000 yen. So if the Chinese can get it right at a low price, there is no reason for Good Smile to screw it up. So the good news over here is that this figure is pretty much perfect. Head to toe, there is no flaw to be found on this figure. No ugly gaps or seam lines, no mold lines, no glue leaking out from parts that are not fitting well together, or any other quality control issues that you can think of. This thing is virtually perfect. So, well done, Good Smile Arts Shanghai, I suppose, because this is my first time buying a figure from Good Smile Arts Shanghai. So I wasn't sure what to expect, because in the past, people were saying that the quality control is not as good as the Good Smile Company, the main branch of some kind. That was the case in the past 2 years ago. Today in 2025, I wasn't sure what to expect. So after inspecting this figure, overall, I can say that I am really looking forward to buying more figures from this brand. Yes. If there is a way for me to describe the sculpt on this figure, on her body overall, I would say that it is muscular, yet feminine at the same time. I'm not sure if I described it correctly, because this looks like someone who went to the gym very frequently, yet you have all the nice shapes that is associated to a very pretty female, right? Big oppa and then big backside and so on. In fact, if you pay attention to the side of the figure over here. Yep, the hip over here, right? It curves out and then it goes back in and then curves back out again, because with the way the human body, our human muscles are being sculpted, it is exactly like that. I'm not sure how to put it into words. This is getting a bit scientific, a bit anatomical, but I mean, I am a medical practitioner in my real life, so I know a little bit about these things, and it kind of looks realistic in a way, the way the muscles are being sculpted along the side of her body, around her abdomen, all the way to her backside. So I was really appreciating this part a lot more than some people, right? Despite the simplicity of the figure, I can spot these kind of things. So maybe I am underselling the figure a bit too much by giving her a 7 out of 10. That is my score for her sculpting. And that is mostly because of the low detail, lower levels of complexity of the figure, not because the sculpting is bad. Meanwhile, what about the face? An easy 9 or even 9.5 out of 10. Her face is as good as it gets. This is definitely Rapi, very accurate sculpting over there. And her eyes are kind of unique. Like, the more I look at her, sometimes even in my own photographs, the more I feel being drawn to her face for some reason. I think the way they designed the eyes, the decal for her face, they are very well done, very exceptional. So this is a figure that looks simple on the surface, but when you take a closer look and you start to appreciate the smaller details, it can really attract you. So I suppose that sometimes simplicity is best. Meanwhile, moving on to the paintwork on this figure. This is where there's something special about this figure, and it is not something you can see with your own eyes from a distance, be it from far or up close. This is just a very well painted figure with adequate shading and weathering. But what is special about her is when you touch the figure, especially the skin area, and then you are like, wow, what is this? I've never felt this before. You guys saw me and my reactions in my figure haul video roughly 2 months ago, where I was enjoying rubbing myself against Rapi's backside. And I mean rubbing my fingers, not some other body parts, right? There is something nice about touching her skin over here. Very smooth, almost greasy in a way. But don't worry, this figure is not oily in any way. So if I were to give you guys a rough idea, comparing it to figures by Alter or Amakuni, some of them, they have this soft touch coating, where when you touch the figure's skin area, it feels like touching real human skin. That is not what this figure feels like. It feels like touching someone with a very thick layer of sunblock cream applied. I'm not sure if this analogy or this description is even accurate. So it is a very new feeling. It is something I've never felt before when touching an anime figure. It is something special over here. You give it a try, you touch the figure once, and then don't do that again. Don't rub yourself against the figure, because you do not want to leave behind sweat and other other contaminants on the figure, because you will introduce mold problems onto the figure in future. But this is a figure where you really need to experience touching it, rubbing it at least once. Something special is going on over here. So putting aside the special coating they applied on her skin, if you look at the shading and the weathering work, it is quite evident that it is there. Regardless of whether it is her hair, you get multiple different shades of brown color over here. And then even on a swimsuit in front, the pale washed out blue color over here, there are different shades of blue color, right? So there is adequate shading all around, and even on her skin. I'm not sure how many layers of paintwork and coating they applied on her skin. Simple figure, but when you look closer, not so simple, I suppose. A lot of work, a lot of layers into the paintwork. So what score can I give for the paintwork? Admittedly, there is a bit of bias over here. Bias towards Nikke characters that I like, but I'm giving her an 8 out of 10 for paintwork. Because putting aside the weathering and the coating, there are also virtually no defects of any kind on this figure. No paint bleeding, no paint transfer, no scratches, nothing. This thing is perfect for both the sculpt and the paintwork. What else can you ask for more at 15,000 yen? So the last part of this figure is definitely the base, which we are getting the surface of a beach, a sandy base, I suppose. And the base does feel a little bit cheap. It is hollow underneath after all, and they screwed the figure into the base once again. I don't like it. But this base over here, for a 15,000 yen figure, I am okay with it because it is not a plain black, gray or white disc with nothing on it. So I'm giving her base a 6 out of 10 maybe. Yeah, 6 out of 10 maximum. And arriving at the conclusion of today's figure review, this Rapi figure is very easy to recommend for any fans of Goddess of Victory Nikke. Maybe you can't afford a 30,000 yen Nikke figure like Volume by Max Factory, which I reviewed roughly a month ago. That thing is expensive and it feels a little bit small for 1x7 scale figure. This one does not feel small. It is simple, it is low detail, but most importantly, she turns out perfect at a low cost of 15,000 yen. So if you love Nikke, you love Rapi, go out and get one right now. So until then, if you enjoyed this review and found it informative, please do give this video a like, subscribe to this channel for more anime figure content every week. And until then, I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching and goodbye.